Yeah, good question. It's been a while since I thought about choosing an undergrad institution, but from what I remember, I focused mostly on like schools I thought I heard were good, and then ones that weren't too far away from home because I've never been too far away from home before. Obviously, closest to home is still something that you might want to consider when you apply to graduate school. I know that NYU was a choice for me because it meant getting back to Chicago easily, and that's completely understandable. And kind of your own personal comfort where you're living, your ease of accessing family and friends, those are important considerations. But beyond that,
yeah, let me
think
ask
a lot about.
I'll ask you a pointed question, Jeff. Sure. All of what you've said is totally right. But there's like, top 10 schools in the United States to go to from the US News and World Report. Do you use that as a PhD student, a future PhD student?
No, I don't even know if those, well, definitely not the general like college rankings. Those it doesn't matter at all. I don't even know if they're like graduate level or like department level rankings for social psychology or psychology. I mean, there might be, but they probably don't matter either because I don't know how you could possibly assess that. It's just for me, the main thing was, do I like the research being done in that program? Do I see myself being a part of that program and contributing to the research that they're doing? Do they seem like they would provide a good environment for me to become the best researcher that I can be?
Awesome. Maybe we can hear from Aisun also. How did you decide which program to go to? Did you just look at what was the best school out there? Did you look for reputation, or did you do something different?
Yeah, mainly what I did was I went back to the papers that I really liked, and I looked those labs, like where are those labs and like what kind of other research they do. So my focus was starting from the research, the papers that I really liked before, and then going through instead of specific schools. But I still think that school is still important, because if the program in general also fits you, you will, I mean, this is my personal opinion maybe, but like you can still have a lot of benefit from that too. So if it's a specific lab that you are really, really into, it's more important than the department or the school's reputation as well. But the program, the other professors that you can collaborate with, those were my other.
Yeah, totally. You're choosing a faculty member who's going to be your mentor. You're not choosing an entire university that's going to support your specific area of expertise that you're growing in. Jacob, I saw you had your hand raised. Would you like to pose a question here?
Yeah, just basically on this topic, how important is it to weigh the general program versus those particular lab or professor that you're applying to work with? As someone just mentioned, looking at the research of the entire program as opposed to necessarily the research of one lab or one professor. So I was just wondering how to balance the different requirements and research in the entire program versus maybe let's just say there's one professor.
Sure, Liz Harris, do you want to offer an answer to that question? Another one of our PhD students.
Yeah, I think definitely the most important thing is the research fit with the specific faculty member. That's weighed definitely the most heavily. Some programs like NYU, you have to work with another faculty member as well. Like you need a secondary advisor. So it's good to have at least one other person that you think you can collaborate with. And also just in terms of the program, when I was applying, I asked everyone if the stats program was good, because it's nice if they have strong stats courses.
Yeah, I would advise looking first for the faculty member and then looking to see what are the other support systems that you'll have in place there. Urvi, I think your hand was up next.
Yeah, thank you. I guess my question is kind of related in that I'm wondering how closely do you expect research interests to align between a graduate student and their faculty advisor or mentor? And I guess a related sort of second piece of it would be, what kind of research experience are you looking for people to have already while applying?
Sure, let's take that first question first. Mike, would you like to answer that? How closely aligned should students' research be with faculty member in C&P, if you want to reflect that?
Yeah, sure. When we do graduate admissions, and by the way, there's both social and CNP have pages that outline the whole admissions procedure and actually answer this question amongst many others. So that page is worth looking at. When we decide whom to admit, obviously want people who are strong, smart, and if possible, have had some research experience. But if their research interests are focused and look like they would be interested in what's happening in your lab, you're going to be much more motivated to urge the program as a whole to admit that student into your lab. So it is important. If your interests fall between faculty and don't really fall directly on something, it doesn't mean you have to carry out the studies that are in some faculty member's grant, and a faculty member that insists on that is not someone with whom you should work. But it has to be a project where when you say, I'd like to work on this, and they say, oh, that sounds really cool, and comes up with other additional ideas, when there's that kind of synergy, you definitely want that. So you want to find people whose work is pretty closely aligned with yours, both because it'll be more fun for you and because it'll be more likely that they're going to be motivated to urge the program to admit you.
And the same is true for the social psychology group, is that we foster independence. Our goal is to train people to be independent researchers. So we do like it when people come in with their own questions, but we want to mentor people based on our expertise, right? So if you wanted to study something that I really don't know about, then we're not going to be a good fit because I won't be able to be the best mentor for you. So yeah, so it's about synergy with ideas there. And I see your hand is up, Katie, but let me just say I started my questions here to Jeff in particular, because I want to highlight that we do have two halves of our department. We are the psychology department, but you don't apply to a PhD in psychology at NYU. You'll apply to a PhD program either in cognition and perception, which you heard some people speak about from our data blitz, or the social psychology area. And if you're interested in developmental, then you sort of choose your research questions. Which side do they go? Do they fit a little bit more with the cognition area or with the social area? But still, if you want to be a developmental psychologist, you still choose whether you want to be in which track you want to take. Now, how do you decide then which area of these two possibilities do I apply to? It comes back to looking at the faculty member. Right. So again, we're not going based on the prestige of NYU or the prestige of the cognition and perception group or the social group. We're looking at what's the best fit for the kinds of research that I want to ask. Is it with this faculty member? Okay, it is. And which side? Are they in social or are they in cognition and perception? And that's where you would apply. Katie, go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah, so my question is about, I know I saw in the email some of the links that you're required to have two advisors, or a main advisor and then maybe a secondary advisor. So I was just kind of wondering, I wanted to hear from a grad student or two, what that has been like for you, because I know at my home university, what I've seen is only one primary advisor. So I'm only kind of familiar with how grad students kind of operate in that environment. But I was kind of wondering, how does that look like in your first year? Do you only work with one at first and then slowly start to, so just kind of whatever your experience has been with working with two different advisors.
That's a great question. In social psychology, it's a requirement because that's how we ensure that you get a breadth of training experience. Mike, do you have a requirement of collaborating with more than one advisor?
We do not have a requirement. And in fact, it wasn't until recently that we instituted that everyone should have a secondary advisor as someone who just checks in on them regularly, in addition to the once a year typical meeting with your advisory committee. So just someone else to make sure you're doing okay. But I would say, which is related to the previous question I answered, you apply to a place, you have an advisor you'd like to work with and they'd like to work with you. It's good if it's a program where there's a backup plan. If for whatever reason the relationship with you and your advisor sours, or something else comes up such that you want to switch labs, or you change a school, or you change your interest, whatever it is, it's good if you have the potential, meaning one or more other people in the department that you could work with, either because you want to switch, or what happens most often in my program is a lot of cross-lab collaboration. So that happens all the time. It's not a secondary advisor, but you do a project that involves two faculty members. Yeah. So that just is more benefit for you to make use of more of our expertise.
Yeah, that's great. You did ask to hear from some graduate students. Claire Robertson, do you want to offer your perspective on what does it look like to work with two people?
I can offer my perspective of what it has been like to start in the program. So I'm a second year student right now, and I don't currently have a secondary advisor. What I do have is I have a committee, which is like it's like an advisory committee, and that consists of people and faculty who I might be interested in working in the long term. The nice thing about our program and what I've experienced is that it's very easy to get to know other faculty members. So even though I haven't picked somebody and written down on a form and had them, sign and date it, you are now my secondary advisor. Every faculty member that I reached out to and asked, hi, I would love to start sitting on your lab meetings, was like, oh my gosh, immediately put me on the listserv, was like, join our Slack, like very inviting and warm, and really great to be able to then like hear about their research, because when you start, like I knew Jay's research very, very well, but it wasn't clear to me exactly what everybody else did. And it's been there's a lot of avenues to be able to learn about the other faculty and what they do and what their students do. And what's also nice is that you're not expected to walk in there and say, okay, I know I want to do this project with these people and this project with these people, because I certainly did not do that. And as far as I know, I'm doing fine. So certainly, thanks, Emily. So yeah, you can really take your time, and like you don't have to rush into anything. Learn more about the faculty, learn more about yourself, figure out what you really want to research once you get here, because I promise you it will change. Whatever you put in your application will be slightly different than what you actually end up doing once you're in a program. That's a guarantee. And that's totally fine. That's part of the process.
Thank you. So one of the questions that just came in the chat is about the admissions process. All applications are read by graduate students and by faculty. Every single application comes in. There isn't that comes in, gets reviewed. And what we're looking for in particular is the whole package. There's no formula of what it takes to get into graduate school. There's no minimum GRE requirement. In fact, last year we didn't allow it in social to be submitted, and it wasn't required in cognition and perception. We really are looking for the whole package. What experiences have you had? How well do you fit with our department in terms of the things that you want to study? So one of the ways that we suss that out is through your research statement. The research statement, you've heard about that. It's one of probably the most important pieces of independent writing that you'll do as a part of the application process. In the documents that I sent your way, along with the Zoom link, you can see many examples that our current PhD students have agreed to share with you. They're successful because they're in our program to have given this, to have shared them with you. So you can see a lot of different examples. I want to call on Don Yang. When you were writing your research statement, how many drafts did you go through before you submitted it?
Oh, I think for the NYU one, I did at least 10 times, 10 different drafts. And for different schools, I will adjust the personal statement a little bit to make it more suitable for the different programs. So do you expect a lot of rewriting? Because you will ask for help from different from your friends or advisors and more senior people in the lab that you work in, and it will be much better in the later drafts when you finally find a good way to link your current research experience with your potential advisor, and yeah.
Awesome, thanks. How about just a quick number? Jeff, how many times do you think you rewrote it with your mentor?
I would probably say around 10, between 10 to 15. A few different drafts on my own, then give it to someone you trust to read it, get it feedback, then give it to someone else you trust.
Totally.
And eventually you'll start getting to a place where there's not much more you can do when you know you're ready.
Right. So that's the importance, right, of having somebody help you through this process. We're giving you just a taste of that and trying to reiterate, like, we're here to support you, but you also need somebody who is there to help grow your career along all of these stages. And all of us feel really fortunate to have found that person, and we encourage you to do the same. We are going to soon go to breakout rooms where all of your questions you can ask. so that you get more time to ask the questions to more of us. So I want to make sure that we leave ample time for that. But some other things that you might want to ask about in your breakout rooms, a question about interviews came up. We do interviews at NYU, so you're right to ask that question. But the thing I like to point out, it's not just us coming in, say, like looking at you, scrutinizing who's the best, who's not so good, who's going to work or not. It's you scrutinizing us and seeing, like, is this a place that I want to be? Do I like this person who's going to be my guide, my mentor, my advisor for the next 5 years? And that really is the approach that we take when it comes to the interviews. We're trying to sell you on us as much as you might be trying to sell yourself on us. But there's a lot of yous and us's. I hope you get it, though. It's a two-way street. That's what I'm trying to say. So that's a good thing to ask about. The research statement that we talked about, but also your CV. You know that you're growing your CV. And one thing that we will really be focusing on in the CV, your curriculum vitae, not a resume, your vitae. And if you're not sure about the difference, feel free to ask that in the breakout session. We're looking for research experience. That's one of the things that's most important to us, is research experience, because it tells us that you know what you want to study. You've put your foot in that water, and you know when you're saying, I want to study X, you've tried it out in some sense. And so that's what we're looking for, these foundational skills. So feel free to ask people in your breakout rooms, how did you get that experience? What kind of experience? How do I showcase that experience? So I'm going to pause now